The Xylithian Empire controlled 17 star systems. Their warships were made of crystal that could not break. Their soldiers had lived for thousands of years. They had never lost a war. They had never even come close to losing. Overlord Vish stood on the bridge of his command ship and looked at the reports about Earth. He read them the way a god might read about insects. Humans were weak. They lived for only 80 years. Their bodies could be broken with one punch. They had no special powers. They had no shields that could stop energy weapons. They were nothing. The Xylithian Empire had watched Earth for 50 years. Humans learned to fly. They sent robots to other planets. They split the atom and made bombs from it. Vish did not care about these things. Humans would never reach the stars. It was impossible for them. The universe belonged to the Xylithians. Then something changed. A human ship left Earth. It was small and slow. It carried 5,000 humans to a planet called Kepler 442b. Vish was told about this by a junior officer who thought it was important. Vish laughed. Humans were so stupid. They thought they could live among the stars. They thought they belonged here. Vish decided to visit this colony himself. He wanted to see these humans who thought they were ready for the galaxy. He wanted to teach them a lesson. He took one small warship with 200 soldiers. It was more than enough. Nothing could stop the Xylithian Empire. Nothing. Marcus Holland was 38 years old. He had spent 20 years in Earth's military. He had trained for this job since he was a young man. He was the captain of the colony's defense force. He had 70 soldiers under him. He had 6 ships. They were old ships. They were slow, but they were all Earth had. The colony was called New Hope. It had farms and schools. It had a hospital. Children played in the streets. Scientists studied the planet's rocks and soil. Families had left Earth hoping to build a better life. They had left because Earth was crowded and tired. They wanted to start again on a new world. Marcus's daughter was named Lily. She was 7 years old. She had dark hair that she wore in braids. She loved to draw pictures of space and aliens. She went to the colony school every day. She wanted to be an explorer when she grew up. She wanted to visit every planet. She talked about it all the time. Marcus loved his daughter more than anything. He loved her more than the colony. He loved her more than Earth. But he was a soldier. He had a duty. He had to protect everyone. The day Vish arrived was clear. The sky was blue. There were no clouds. Lily was at school with 300 other children. She was learning about the history of Earth. The teacher was telling them about the first humans who crossed the ocean in ships. Marcus was in the command center when the Xylithian ship entered orbit. His officers looked at the readings and went quiet. The ship was huge. It was bigger than anything they had ever seen. One of his officers, Lieutenant David Casey, spoke first. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "Sir, that ship could destroy our entire colony in 3 seconds," Casey said. Marcus nodded. He already knew this. He had studied Xylithian technology. He knew they were outmatched. But he was not going to surrender. He was not going to let his people become slaves. He would fight. Even if it was hopeless, he would fight. Vish landed at the colony center. He stepped out of his ship and the air around him felt cold. He was tall. He was 7 feet tall. His skin was blue and smooth like glass. His eyes were large and black. He looked at the humans and saw nothing but weakness. Marcus went to meet him. He brought 5 soldiers with him. He wore his dress uniform. He stood straight. He did not show fear. Vish looked at Marcus and laughed. The laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. It hurt to hear it. "You are the leader of this colony," Vish said. His voice was deep and cold. "I am," Marcus said. "I am Captain Marcus Holland. You are on Earth territory. You have no right to be here." Vish laughed again. "Earth territory? This is Xylothian territory. Everything is Xylothian territory. You will surrender your people to me now. They will serve the Empire. They will work until they die. This is mercy. I could kill you all right now, but I will let you live as slaves." Marcus looked at the Xylothian commander. He felt anger rise in his chest like fire, but he kept his voice calm. "We will not surrender. We will not be slaves. We are free people. You need to leave." Vish's eyes grew darker. His hand moved. A weapon appeared in it. It was a weapon that humans had no defense for. "You will surrender," Vish said, "or everyone will die." Marcus did not answer. He just looked at the Overlord. He would not surrender. He would fight even if there was no hope. Vish smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of something that had never known defeat. Something that believed it was a god. "You are brave," Vish said. "I will give you 1 hour to think about your answer. Then I will show you what happens when humans refuse the Xylothian Empire." Marcus stood in the command center and watched the clock. 1 hour. His officers wanted to evacuate. They wanted to run. But where would they go? There was nowhere to hide. At his home, Lily was coming home from school. Her teacher had told her to go home early. Something was wrong. She could feel it. She could see it in the faces of the adults. She walked through the colony and saw soldiers running. She saw fear. She went to her room and drew a picture. It was a picture of her father standing in front of a big ship. In her picture, her father was smiling. 59 minutes after Vish made his demand, he pointed at the colony school. The building was made of metal and strong plastic. There were 300 children inside. There was one teacher. The Xylothian weapon fired. There was no sound. There was no warning. The building disappeared. 300 children disappeared. Lily Holland disappeared. When Marcus felt the explosion, he fell to his knees. He knew. Somehow, he knew. His daughter was gone. His little girl with her braids and her dreams of being an explorer. She was gone. Vish returned to his ship. He did not need to see the damage he had done. He knew it was complete. He knew the humans would surrender now. Everyone surrenders when their children are killed. But Marcus Holland did not surrender. He stood up. He wiped his eyes. He walked into the streets and he looked at the other survivors. And he made a promise. He promised that the Xylothian Empire would pay. He promised that Vish would answer for what he had done. He promised it even though he did not know how to keep that promise. He promised it because it was the only thing left to believe in. The empire that had never known. Defeat had just made its first and biggest mistake. It had killed Marcus Holland's daughter. And it had awakened something in humanity that no alien technology could ever stop. Marcus Holland returned to Earth with a small box of ashes. The box was gray. It was made of metal. Inside was his daughter. Inside was Lily. There was nothing else left of her. The spaceship landed in North America. It was at a military base in Colorado. News had already spread across the world. The news said that aliens had destroyed a human colony. The news said that 3,000 people were dead. The news said that this was the first time Earth had been attacked by something from space. But the world did not understand what this meant. The world did not know that the Xylothian Empire was preparing to attack again. The world did not know that everything was about to change. Marcus walked into a building that was buried under the ground. It was a military command center. The walls were made of stone. There were computers everywhere. The room was full of soldiers in uniforms. They were waiting for him. Admiral Patricia Summers was in the command center. She was 60 years old. She had gray hair. She had spent her whole life preparing for this day. She had studied Xylothian technology for 30 years. She had built Earth's military space force from almost nothing. Everyone said she was crazy. Everyone said the aliens would never come. Everyone said Summers was wasting time and money. Now Summers looked at Marcus Holland, and she saw something in his eyes. She saw a man who had nothing left to lose. She saw a man who was willing to do anything. "They killed your daughter," Summers said. It was not a question. "Yes," Marcus said. "And you want revenge," Summers said. "I want them dead," Marcus said. "All of them. I want their empire to burn. I want their worlds to burn. I want them to feel what we feel." Summers nodded slowly. She stood up. She walked to a map on the wall. The map showed the galaxy. It showed the Xylothian Empire. It showed 17 star systems. It showed thousands of worlds. The Xylothian Empire is the most powerful military force in the galaxy, Summers said. Their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons are stronger than ours. Their soldiers have thousands of years of experience in war. And there are millions of them. Marcus listened. He already knew these things. He did not care. He did not care about the odds. "We have one advantage," Summers said. "Only one. The Empire believes that we are weak. The Empire believes that we will surrender when they kill enough of us. The Empire has never fought an enemy that would not give up. The Empire has never fought something that would be willing to die instead of surrender." Summers turned and looked at Marcus in the eyes. "We can use that. We can use our willingness to die. We can use it as a weapon." The military council met for 3 days. There were generals and scientists and politicians. They argued about whether it was possible to attack the Xylothian Empire. They argued about whether it was the right thing to do. Some said that Earth should try to make peace. Some said that Earth should hide. Some said that Earth should surrender now before more people died. But Marcus Holland sat in that room and held the box with his daughter's ashes. And he did not say anything. And everyone saw the box. And everyone understood that surrender was not an option. On the 4th day, Admiral Summers presented her plan. The plan was insane. The plan was impossible. The plan involved building 3 battle groups. The plan involved sending 20,000 soldiers to the other side of the galaxy. The plan involved attacking the Xylothian Empire in its heartland. The plan involved doing things that had never been done before. The council voted. The vote was close. But in the end, the council voted yes. Earth would attack the Xylothian Empire. Earth would go to war. The news spread around the world. Soldiers started to volunteer. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. Men and women who had never fought in a war. Men and women who were afraid, but who understood that their fear did not matter. The aliens had killed children. The aliens had to pay. Dr. Kevin Porter was a weapons engineer. He had studied Xylothian technology for his whole life. He had written papers about their weak points. Nobody had listened to him. Now everyone wanted to listen. Dr. Porter had an idea. He knew that Xylothian shield generators had a frequency. He knew that if you could match that frequency, you could break the shields. It was difficult. It was almost impossible. But it was possible. Dr. Porter and his team worked for 6 months without sleeping. They designed a weapon that could send out a magnetic pulse. The pulse would be tuned to the exact frequency of the Xylothian shields. The pulse would break the shields. Then the real weapons could do the damage. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim was a pilot. She had flown fighter jets since she was young. She was the best pilot in Earth's military. When Summers asked her to recruit the best pilots in the world, Kim knew exactly who to find. Kim traveled to military bases around the world. She found pilots who were brave. She found pilots who were smart. She found pilots who were willing to fly into space and fight things that were 10 times stronger than they were. She found pilots who understood that they might not come home. Kim told each pilot the same thing. She told them that this was a suicide mission. She told them that the odds were against them. She told them that they might die. And they volunteered anyway. Chief Engineer Robert Grant was in charge of building the ships. The ships had to be big enough to carry soldiers across the galaxy. The ships had to have life support for 18 months. The ships had to have weapons. The ships had to be able to survive in space. Without any help from Earth. Grant took all the best engineers and all the best resources. He built the ships in orbit around Earth. He worked day and night. He made them strong. He made them fast. He made them weapons. 18 months after Vish destroyed the New Hope colony, the 3 battle groups were ready. There were 3 ships. There were 20,000 soldiers. There were thousands of weapons. There were pilots and engineers and doctors and scientists. There were people who wanted to fight. There were people who wanted to win. There were people who wanted revenge. Marcus Holland stood in front of all these soldiers. He was now a lieutenant colonel. He had been promoted because he was the only one who had looked Vish in the eyes and refused to surrender. He held up the box with his daughter's ashes. He held it high so everyone could see it. "This is my daughter," he said. Her name was Lily. She was 7 years old. She wanted to be an explorer. She wanted to visit every world in the galaxy. The Xylothian Empire killed her. The Xylothian Empire destroyed her dreams. Marcus's voice was hard and cold. It was the voice of a man who had lost everything. "We are going to the Xylothian heartland. We are going to burn their worlds. We are going to kill their soldiers. We are going to show them what it means to attack humanity. We are going to show them that we do not surrender. We are going to show them that they made a mistake the day they killed our children." The soldiers did not cheer. They did not make noise. They just listened. They understood what Marcus was saying. They understood that this was not about glory or victory. This was about something deeper. This was about showing the galaxy that humanity would never give up. The ships left Earth orbit. They carried 20,000 soldiers toward the Xylothian heartland. They carried the anger of a species that had been attacked. They carried the promise that Overlord Vish's empire would burn. Admiral Summers watched the ships leave from the command center. She held the copy of Marcus's promise. She held Lily Holland's photograph. And she knew that the galaxy was about to change. The Xylothian Empire had no idea what was coming. The 3 human battle groups traveled through space in cryosleep. 18 months of sleep. 18 months of dreaming. 18 months of traveling toward an enemy that did not know they were coming. When the soldiers woke up, they were near the Xylothian heartland. They were in a region of space that had never seen human ships. The Xylothian Empire had never had to defend its own territory. The Empire had only attacked other worlds. The Empire had never been attacked at home. But something was wrong. When the computers counted the soldiers, the number was less. 2 ships had failed during the journey. 2 ships had broken. 2 ships had frozen solid. 2,000 soldiers had died in the cold of space before the war even started. Marcus Holland woke up from cryo-sleep and immediately heard the news. He felt the weight of it. 2,000 soldiers dead before they had fired a single shot. 2,000 soldiers who would not go home. 2,000 soldiers whose families would never see them again. But there was no time for sadness. There was no time for grief. The ships had already been detected by Xylothian sensors. The enemy knew they were here. Admiral Summers' plan was simple. Attack everything at once. Do not give the Empire time to organize. Do not let them bring all their ships to one place. Spread the attack across 3 different locations. Make the Empire send their soldiers everywhere. Make them stretched thin. Make them confused. The first attack was on a space station called Vish Station. It orbited the primary Xylothian world. It was named after the Overlord himself. It was a symbol of Xylothian power. Marcus led the attack personally. He flew in a small fighter ship. Behind him flew 100 other fighters. Below him were attack ships. Above him were bombers. They came out of hyperspace like a storm. They came out fast and angry. The Xylothian station did not have time to raise its shields. The human ships fired. They fired the magnetic pulse weapons that Dr. Porter had designed. The pulse hit the station and the shields went down. Then the real attack started. Plasma weapons hit the Xylothian hull. They hit hard. They hit fast. The station began to break. The station began to burn. But the Xylothians fought back. They were not like the humans expected. They were organized. They were skilled. They had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They had discipline and training and patience. Xylothian fighters came out of the station like insects. They moved fast. They moved smart. They attacked the human ships. They killed human pilots. They killed them one by one. Marcus saw his friend die. Lieutenant Paul Ryan's ship was hit. It exploded in a ball of blue fire. There was nothing left. There was no body to bring home. There was nothing except fire. Marcus felt the pain of it. But he kept flying. He kept fighting. He fired his weapons. He killed Xylothian fighters. He kept moving forward. The battle lasted 4 hours. By the end, the space station was destroyed. But the human cost was high. 50 fighter pilots died. 50 ships were lost. 50 families would get notices telling them their loved ones were dead. When Marcus returned to the command ship, he went straight to see Admiral Summers. She was in the command center, coordinating the other 2 battles. "We won," Summers said. She said it like she was reading a report. She said it like it was just a fact. "We lost 50 pilots," Marcus said. "And the Xylothians lost 200, Summers said. "We can replace 50 pilots. The Xylothians cannot replace 200 fighters. We are winning." Marcus did not feel like they were winning. He felt like they were bleeding. But Summers was right. The numbers showed it. For every human who died, 2 Xylothians died. The Empire could not sustain that kind of loss. The Empire was not used to losing. Over the next weeks, the human forces attacked again and again. They attacked Xylothian bases. They attacked Xylothian supply ships. They attacked Xylothian worlds. They did not stop. They did not rest. Overlord Vish was in his fortress on Xyloth Prime. He was the most powerful being in the galaxy. He had never been challenged. He had never been hurt. And now a species that he had considered nothing, a species of short-lived insects, was destroying his empire. Vish sent his best generals. He sent his best ships. He sent his best soldiers. But nothing could stop the humans. The humans had something that the Xylothians did not have. The humans had anger. The humans had rage. The humans had a reason to fight that went beyond strategy or conquest. Dr. Porter's weapons continued to work. The magnetic pulse generators broke the Xylothian shields. The plasma weapons destroyed the Xylothian ships. Each battle showed that human technology, combined with human determination, could match Xylothian power. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim became a legend. She flew 137 combat missions. She shot down 90 Xylothian fighters. She never returned from a mission without completing her objective. The soldiers started calling her the Storm. The soldiers said she was not human. The soldiers said she was something more. Chief Engineer Robert Grant kept the human ships flying. Every damage was repaired. Every weapon was maintained. Every system was kept running. Grant worked without sleep. He worked until his hands shook. He worked because he knew that every ship that broke down meant soldiers would die after 3 months of war. The human forces had destroyed 40% of the Xyloan navy. 40%. A number that would have seemed impossible at the start. A number that proved humans could fight gods. But the cost was high. 3,000 human soldiers had died in combat. 3,000 soldiers who were not coming home. 3,000 soldiers who had families waiting for them on Earth. Marcus stood in the memorial room of the command ship. The names were written on the walls. 3,000 names. 3,000 people. He touched each name as he walked past. He memorized them. He carried them. The war was far from over. The Xylothean Empire still had more ships. The Xylothean Empire still had more soldiers. But something fundamental had changed. The myth of Xylothean invincibility had been broken. The idea that the Empire could never lose had been proven false. Overlord Vish watched the reports from his fortress. His face was hard and cold. He did not look surprised. He looked like someone who had just realized that everything he believed about the universe was wrong. And Marcus Holland, the man who had held his daughter's ashes, was still coming toward him. Still fighting. Still advancing. Still promising destruction. The long war had only just begun. Xyloth Prime was the capital world of the Xylothean Empire. It had 17 continents. It had 5 billion people. It had been the center of power for 3,000 years. It was the jewel of the empire. And it was about to be attacked by humans. Admiral Summers created the final plan. It was the most dangerous plan she had ever created. She would attack Xyloth Prime from orbit. She would attack it with everything that the human fleet had. She would destroy the government. She would destroy the military infrastructure. She would destroy the will of the Xylotheans to fight at the same time. Marcus would lead a ground invasion. He would land on the planet. He would fight his way to the fortress. He would find Overlord Vish. He would end this war. It was a plan that could fail. If it failed, the human fleet would be destroyed. If it failed, Marcus and his soldiers would be trapped on a hostile world with no way to escape. If it failed, humanity would lose everything. But there was no other choice. The humans had already sacrificed too much to turn back now. The day of the final attack came. The human fleet moved into orbit around Xyloth Prime. There were 300 ships. There were 10,000 soldiers in orbit. There were 5,000 soldiers preparing to land. The Xylothean defenders knew what was coming. They had prepared. They had built defenses. They had brought their remaining ships. They had brought their best soldiers. They were going to defend their world. Marcus stood in the landing bay of the command ship. He wore combat armor. He held a weapon. He looked at the 5,000 soldiers standing in front of him. They were silent. They were ready. "Today, we end this war," Marcus said. His voice was calm. His voice was cold. "Today, we make Vish answer for what he did to our people. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of." The soldiers did not cheer. They just listened. "You all know the odds," Marcus said. "You all know that we might not come home. You all know that this might be where we die. But I will tell you something. I would rather die here, fighting for my daughter's memory, than live anywhere else. I would rather die here than surrender." Marcus looked at each soldier in the eye. He looked at them like they were his family. In a way, they were. They were the only family he had left. "Let's go kill a god," he said. The landing craft descended toward Xyloth Prime. The sky was orange. The air was thick and heavy. The ground was dark stone that had been shaped by a civilization for thousands of years. The Xylotheans attacked immediately. They came from underground bunkers. They came from fortified positions. They came fast and they came hard. The first landing zone became a battlefield in seconds. Human soldiers jumped out of the landing craft and immediately came under fire. Xylithian weapons were strong. Xylithian weapons could cut through body armor. Human soldiers died in the first seconds of combat, but humans did something different. Humans did not retreat. Humans did not try to preserve themselves. Humans advanced even when advancing meant dying. Humans attacked even when the attack could not possibly succeed. A human soldier named James Wilson was hit in the chest. The wound was fatal. He knew it. But instead of sitting down and waiting for death, Wilson grabbed a weapon and ran at the Xylithian position. He fired. He killed 3 Xylithians before he fell. Captain Jennifer Drew was in orbit. She was in command of the bombardment. She looked at the Xylithian positions and she calculated where to fire. She wanted to hit military targets. She did not want to hit cities. She did not want to kill civilians. But she understood that Vish would use civilians as shields. She understood that civilians would die. Jennifer gave the order to fire. The bombardment came down from orbit. It was precise. It was accurate. It destroyed barracks and weapon factories and military command centers. It also destroyed parts of cities. It killed civilians. Families died in the bombardment. Jennifer did not look away from the reports. She read each one. She understood the cost of victory. She accepted the cost. Marcus and his soldiers fought toward the fortress. They moved slowly through the city streets. They moved from building to building. They moved with tactics that the Xylithians did not understand. Human soldiers would hide. Then they would attack from unexpected directions. Human soldiers would sacrifice some of their people to kill more of the enemy. Human soldiers would make decisions that looked insane, but that were actually genius. The Xylithian soldiers fought with discipline and skill. But they fought like soldiers who believed they should win. Humans fought like soldiers who had no choice but to win. The difference was absolute. After 2 days of fighting, Marcus's forces reached the fortress. The fortress was made of crystal and stone. It had walls that were 100 feet tall. It had weapons on the walls. It had soldiers everywhere. But Marcus did not hesitate. He called for an assault. The human soldiers attacked the fortress walls. They carried explosives. They carried weapons. They carried the memory of everyone who had died in the attack on New Hope. The walls of the fortress broke. The soldiers poured inside. They fought in the halls. They fought on the stairs. They fought in the chambers and the throne rooms. They fought until every Xylithian soldier was dead or had surrendered. At the center of the fortress, in the largest chamber, Overlord Vish was waiting. He stood alone. He did not have guards. He did not have weapons. He looked at Marcus Holland, and he did something that humans had never seen a Xylithian do. He looked surprised. "You are here," Vish said. He said it like he was trying to understand something that should not exist. "I told you I would come," Marcus said. "You are just a human," Vish said. "You are weak. You should be dead." "I lost everything," Marcus said. "I lost my daughter. I lost my colony. I lost the life I thought I would have. The only thing I have left is this. The only thing I have left is the promise that you would answer for what you did." Marcus walked toward the Xylithian overlord. He walked slow. He walked calm. He walked like a man who knew exactly what he was going to do. Vish attacked. He was fast. He was strong. He was a being of incredible power. But Marcus was not fighting with strength. Marcus was fighting with knowledge. Marcus was fighting with the experience of 1,000 combat scenarios. Marcus dodged. Marcus moved. Marcus used Vish's own strength against him. And in the end, Marcus stood over the body of the being who had killed his daughter. Vish looked up at Marcus. His eyes were no longer confident. His eyes were confused. He had never imagined that he could lose. He had never imagined that an inferior species could defeat him. Why? Vish asked. Because my daughter deserved to live, Marcus said. Because children should not be killed. Because you were wrong. And because someone had to make you understand that. Vish closed his eyes. And then he was gone. Word spread across the Xylothian Empire. The invincible overlord was dead. The fortress had fallen. The capital was in human hands. Military governors began to fight each other. Tributary states declared independence. The vast machine of the Xylothian Empire, the empire that had never been challenged, began to tear itself apart. The war was not over. There were still Xylothian ships in space. There were still Xylothian soldiers fighting. But something fundamental had changed. The Xylothian Empire was dying, and humanity had killed it. The war ended on a day when nobody expected it to end. There was no final battle. There was no treaty. There was only a slow realization that the Xylothian Empire no longer existed. The military governors of the former empire began to negotiate. They were enemies to each other, but they were united in one thing. They could not defeat the humans. If they fought each other, the humans would destroy them all. So they made peace with each other, and they sent a delegation to Marcus Holland, asking for mercy. Marcus could have conquered the former Xylothian territories. He had the power. He had the military force. He could have ruled over worlds and peoples and controlled the entire region of space. But Marcus did not want to be like Vish. Marcus did not want to be a tyrant. Instead, Marcus helped the new Xylothian leaders establish a government. He helped them organize their military. He helped them create systems of trade and cooperation. He did not take power. He gave it back. The new Xylothian government agreed to terms. They agreed that they would never again attack any world without permission. They agreed that they would recognize the sovereignty of other species. They agreed that Xylothian territory would be open to human trade and human settlement. They agreed that the days of conquest were over. Admiral Patricia Summers negotiated the agreements. She worked for 6 months with the Xylothian delegation. She was kind but firm. She made sure that humans would be respected. She made sure that what happened to Kepler 442b would never happen again. After the negotiations were finished, Marcus Holland returned to Kepler 442b. He went back to the place where his daughter had died. The colony of New Hope had been rebuilt. There were new buildings. There were new farms. There were new people. But the wound was still there. At the site of the old colony school, there was now a monument. The monument was made of black stone. The names were carved into the stone. All 300 children's names were there. All 300 teachers' names were there. All the names of everyone who had died in the destruction. Marcus stood at the monument and he read his daughter's name. Lily Ann Holland, 7 years old. Born on Earth, died on Kepler 442b. The name was simple. The stone was cold under his fingers. He did not cry. He had cried when it happened. He had cried on the night Vish destroyed the school. But he did not cry now. Now he just remembered. He thought about Lily's dreams. She wanted to be an explorer. She wanted to visit every planet in the galaxy. In a way, her dream came true. Her name would be known on 1,000 worlds. Her death would be remembered for thousands of years. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim came to visit the monument. She was the most famous fighter pilot in human history. News feeds called her the Storm. Children wanted to be like her when they grew up. But standing at the monument, Kim thought about something different. She thought about all the pilots who had died fighting the Xylothian Empire. She thought about Paul Ryan and the others. She thought about the fact that she was alive when they were not. Why me? Kim asked Marcus. They were standing at the monument together. Why you what? Marcus asked. Why did I survive when so many others died? Marcus looked at the monument. He looked at his daughter's name. I don't know, he said. I think sometimes you survive because you have to. I think sometimes you live so that you can remember the ones who died. Dr. Kevin Porter received awards. He received medals. He received invitations to speak at universities. But the thing he valued most was simple. He received a letter from a young student. The student said that Dr. Porter's weapons designs had made it possible for humans to win. The student said that the student wanted to become an engineer because of Dr. Porter's example. Dr. Porter wrote back to the student. He told the student that innovation should never be used for conquest. He told the student that the best technology is the kind that protects people who cannot protect themselves. He told the student to use his talent for building, not for destroying. Chief Engineer Robert Grant continued to build ships. But now the ships were different. The ships were built to explore. The ships were built to discover new worlds. The ships were built to help, not to harm. Grant took pride in every ship he built. He knew that these ships would carry humans across the galaxy. He knew that these ships would be remembered. He knew that he had helped change the course of human history. Marcus Holland received job offers. He could have become a general. He could have ruled worlds. He could have been the most important person in human civilization. But he turned down all the offers. Instead, Marcus asked to teach. He asked to teach soldiers about strategy and tactics and the cost of war. He wanted the next generation to understand what it meant to fight. He wanted them to understand that war was not glorious. War was terrible. War killed people. But sometimes war was necessary. Years passed. The scar on Kepler 442b began to heal. The colony grew. New children were born. New families arrived. Life continued. On Lily's birthday, Marcus would visit the monument. He would bring flowers. He would sit by the stone, and he would talk to his daughter. He would tell her about the world that humans were building. He would tell her about the peace that her death had made possible. He would tell her that the Xylothian Empire was gone. He would tell her that children were safe now. He would tell her that because she had died, thousands of other children would live. But he would also tell her that he was sorry. He was sorry that she had to die. He was sorry that her life was cut short. He was sorry that she never got to be an explorer. Lily Holland became a symbol. She became the symbol of innocence lost. She became the symbol of why humans had to fight. She became the symbol of the cost of peace. There were statues of Lily on 100 worlds. There were museums dedicated to Lily. There were songs written about Lily. But none of these things brought her back. None of these things changed the fact that she was dead. What the war had done was make sure that no other child would die the way Lily died. The Xylothian Empire learned that there was a price for attacking humans. The price was their empire. The price was their power. The price was everything they had built for 3,000 years. The galaxy learned something too. The galaxy learned that humans were not weak. Humans were adaptable. Humans were willing to sacrifice. Humans would cross the void to protect their loved ones. Humans would burn worlds if necessary. 20 years after the war ended, Marcus Holland was an old man. His hair was gray. His hands shook sometimes. He was still alive, but not for much longer. He had lived long enough to see peace. He had lived long enough to see humanity take its place as a power in the galaxy. He sat at the monument one last time. He put his hand on his daughter's name. The stone was worn smooth by his fingers touching it so many times. "I kept my promise," he said to her. "The empire that killed you is gone. You are remembered. And the galaxy will never forget the lesson that your death taught them. The wind blew across Kepler 442b. The sky was blue. Somewhere in the colony, children were playing. They were the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the survivors. They were free because humanity had refused to surrender. They did not know Lily's name. They did not know about the war. They did not know about the sacrifice. But they lived free because of it. They lived in a galaxy where their safety mattered. They lived in a world where children were protected. And that was the true victory. Not the destruction of the Xylothian Empire. Not the conquest of their worlds. The true victory was simple. The true victory was that the next generation of children would grow up in peace. The Xylothian Empire had killed one child named Lily Holland. And in response, humanity had unleashed hell upon them. The Empire had fallen. The worlds had burned. The lesson was written across the stars. Never again would anyone underestimate the humans. Never again would anyone believe that humans were weak. Never again would anyone attack human children without facing the full fury of humanity. The empire that had lasted 3,000 years was gone. And it was gone because one man had loved his daughter enough to cross the galaxy and burn the sky. In the end, that was what separated humans from the machines that ruled the galaxy. Humans had love. Humans had sacrifice. Humans had the willingness to burn everything to protect what mattered. And that was the most powerful force in the universe.